It sounds counterintuitive that you would buy more as a minimalist, but for me, at least in certain cases, it's true. So these are the things that I spend more on while still continuing to practice minimalism. Let's go. Hi guys, it's Laura and I help you live a simpler, happier, more spacious life. And in my last video, I shared things that I no longer buy or spend less money on as a minimalist. So there is definitely a balance in my life. Now, like with that last video, I want to start with a general thing that I spend more money on before I dive into the more specific categories of things. And also, like with the last video, let's keep this a judgment-free zone. However you choose to spend your money is completely up to you. How I choose to spend my money, completely up to me. So let's start with that general one that I talked about, and that is that I now spend more money on things that make me comfortable, things that give me comfort, things that make me feel better. I'm more willing to invest in my own comfort, the things that make me feel good. For example, fluffy socks, heated blankets, or just blankets in general, fleecy pajamas and thermal underlayers. Listen, if you are not buying fleece lined everything and you live in a cold climate, or where it's cold at least part of the year, oh, you're missing out. It's wonderful. But also things like comfortable shoes and backpacks, you know, so the weight is distributed evenly, so it stays on my back, hands free. I don't have like one strap digging into me and constantly like swinging and falling off as I'm walking or moving. So yes, now I invest a little bit more in my comfort, something that I would not have done years ago. But as I have gone on in my decluttering journey, I have realized, you know, what's really important to me and what I kind of spent money on that was just frivolously spent, things that I bought that really didn't bring me comfort or joy in any way, and I wasted money on those things rather than the things that actually make me happy and actually make my life better. Now let's move on to the specific things. And I feel like when people think minimalism, and even when they hear that minimalists might spend a lot of money on something, I think the general consensus is that they are spending more for quality, like they're buying less, but they're just buying better quality stuff or more expensive stuff. This next category is not the case for me. This is something that I never used to buy and now buy lots of. It's not about quality. No, for me, apparently it's about quantity. That is plants. Never used to buy plants, well, mainly because I would kill them. But nowadays, for some reason, I can keep some of them, not all of them, some of them alive. And as I have been decluttering my spaces, I've realized that what I actually want to see in that space, what I want to bring into that space, is a plant. Brings a little bit of life to a space, I don't know, adds a little bit of color. It's just, I don't know, it's nice. And again, it's not about the quality for me, like I buy them at the supermarket or wherever. It's not like I'm going out and buying the most expensive, rare, exotic plants or anything. I'm just buying whatever I can pick up for like less than $10 at the store. Not even sure exactly how many I have. I have some over here. I've got more downstairs. I don't have more than 20, but I definitely have close to 20. And every time I tell myself I'm not going to buy any more plants. There's a lot of maintenance involved, and then every time they die I feel bad, such as the life of a plant parent. It's sad, but it is true. Then I go to the store and I see one, I'm like, oh, you're so pretty. You would look nice in my home. And then yeah, I buy it. So yeah, plants is something that I definitely buy more of. And as a minimalist, you know, as I have emptied out my spaces, I have realized that what they're missing is a plant. Next one then, something that this might sound strange, but bear with me. I spend a lot more money now on gifts for other people. So I'm not cluttering up my own home, I'm cluttering up other people's homes. No, it's not like that. I just find that it brings me more joy now to gift something to someone else than it does to buy something for myself. Maybe there's a little element of still being able to shop while not cluttering up my own home. But it's not even in terms of just gifts for like friends and family and neighbors and stuff, but I do a lot more giving in terms of donating. And again, not just donating all my old stuff, but actually donating food to local food pantries. I donate food and gift vouchers to the school for kids who can't afford lunches, etc. I donate to the local children's hospital, lots of little things like that. I find these days I'm much more giving. I will say that generally the stuff I'm gifting is stuff that can be used up. So I'm gifting, you know, like a gift card or food, for example. And sometimes I will gift, you know, candles or lotions, things like that. I think when you're decluttering, and I mentioned this in my last video as well, it makes you very conscious of the amount of stuff that you consume, particularly stuff that you don't even really need. And then on the flip side, for me at least, it's made me much more conscious of the fact that there are other people who don't even have basic necessities like food, shelter, clothing, etc. Whereas I'm just sitting here with a bunch of stuff that most of it, at least over the years, I don't even really love. Stuff that I bought on impulse, stuff that I bought because it was cheap, you know, or on sale or something. So yeah, over the years I've become much more conscious of consumerism, my consumerism, the impact that it's had on the environment, on others. And these days I would much rather spend my money making someone else's life better, happier, more joyful, rather than just spending money on something for me that is going to give me a quick fix, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just going to sit unwanted, unused, unloved in my home. So I'm cutting the grass outside now. 'Tis the season. Just gonna have to roll with that. But the next one I'm sure will come as no surprise. Books. Actually, I think all of these are either library books or books that I got free at the Little Free Library. Again, recycling, passing things along. My mother is a librarian and I love the library, big bookworm, so I would always borrow my books from the library. But over the past few years, and this maybe ties into the whole kind of gifting thing, nowadays, if I read a book that I love, that I borrowed from the library, for example, I will then go buy a copy, generally a digital copy, but I will buy it as a way of kind of maybe thanking the author, or just like a way of just giving back, I guess. It's not really creating clutter, apart from digital clutter maybe, but it's not taking up extra space in my home, but it's still my way of giving a nod to someone who has spent time creating something that I have enjoyed. So whereas maybe years ago it would have been kind of inconceivable to me to spend money on a book when you could just get it for free at the library, nowadays I kind of understand the value of books, and I understand, you know, that somebody took the time to write that and I really enjoyed it. So again, my way of kind of giving back. And like I said, it's generally the ebook version. These are library books, like I said, so these will be going back. Another thing I spend more money on, and if you are considering decluttering, if you're starting out on your decluttering journey, this is something that you need to be aware of. You will probably spend, or at least I spend, a lot more money now on, you know, recycling or safe disposal of certain items. Some stuff, it's very straightforward. You can just recycle, you know, papers and things. You can throw them into your recycle bin. But for other things like electronics, paint is a new one for me. There are certain things that require that you dispose of them safely and in a certain way, and generally that will require some form of monetary payment. Before I started decluttering, I kept, you know, all of my old phones, I kept all of my old laptops even. Like, electronic recycling was just not on my radar at all, but once I started actually having to declutter those things and get them out of my home, I realized that there are certain facilities that you have to pay for. And it's wonderful, happy to do it, happy to have all of that stuff safely disposed of, like I said, but it is something to be aware of. If you are doing like a big declutter, there may be some things that you will actually have to pay to declutter. Just something to keep in mind. The next one then, something that I spend more money on, is furniture. So years ago, and I mentioned this in my other video where I was talking about things that I don't spend money on anymore, and one of them was, you know, just cheap items. I used to buy very cheap furniture, like the cheapest of the cheap. These days, I realize now that, you know, cheap is probably not going to last. So I save up some of my money and I invest in better quality pieces. Now, when I say better quality, I do not mean like designer stuff, top of the range stuff. I'm very much an IKEA girl, but IKEA stuff, a lot of it is generally good quality. If I go, I don't buy like the cheapest, unless it's something that, you know, doesn't, like, the quality isn't a huge factor in it. But for example, the desk in my office, I could have bought a really cheap desk, but that's somewhere that I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time. I'm going to be sitting at that desk for hours a day. So I wanted it to be spacious, and I wanted it to last for a reasonable amount of time. Same with bedding and stuff. Mattresses are so expensive, but I'm no longer willing to just buy the cheapest mattress because my back will not thank me. So I try to invest a little bit more now in furniture. Again, not huge investments, but just spending a little bit more than bargain basement stuff. It's not always in the budget, it's not always something I prioritize, but if there is something that I know that I'm going to be using a lot, like a bed, like a couch, like my desk, then I try and invest a little bit more money in that if I have it. Another thing I spend more money on these days is better quality food. Years ago, I would just buy the cheapest, whatever the cheapest thing was. Cheap fruit, cheap veg, didn't last very long. Cheap frozen pizzas and just kind of ready meals and stuff, whatever was on sale, whatever was on offer, whatever was just like the cheapest version of something, store brand, etc. And listen, sometimes store brand stuff, the quality, the exact same as branded stuff. But over the years, I have learned to I've learned the difference between what is something that will actually fuel my body and what is something that is just going to make me feel terrible. And generally, not always, but generally the things that make me feel good are the things that are that little bit more, unfortunately, expensive. Again, when you declutter, I think you become much more conscious of the quality of items rather than the monetary cost. Looking at all of the things that I had decluttered and noticing the pattern of all of the things that I was getting rid of were generally the cheaper things, and that kind of then like rippled out to other areas of my life, like my diet, for example. Not saying that my diet is like 100%, far from it, but I do try and buy slightly better quality foods now. Also, and if you've been following me on Instagram, you will know this, but I recently invested in a meal delivery service. So they send me all the ingredients plus the recipe and I make it up. That is something that I never would have spent money on in the past, but now I'm realizing that, number one, I don't have to go out and buy those groceries. Yes, it might be a little bit more expensive overall, but I'm saving on like driving to the store and back. It's saving me time. It's also teaching me how to cook, which as a 37-year-old woman, this is brand new territory to me. I have never been good at cooking. I've always hated cooking. But now that the ingredients, and they're like good ingredients, are being delivered to my home, they're very clear step-by-step instructions, I am actually finding that I am enjoying it. So yeah, spending a lot more money on food in general and just better quality food. Next up is natural cleaning products. I mentioned in my last video that I spend less money on like toxic chemical cleaners. So the flip side of that is that I spend more money on more natural, eco-friendly cleaners. Now, I did say in the last video that generally for most things I will just use water and a cloth, and that's pretty much it. But there are some things that I still need to purchase, like laundry detergent, for example. Hand soap is another one, but for those items I try to go the eco-friendly route as much as possible. And again, like with food, generally that stuff is more expensive. It is more of an investment, but I do feel better about it. I'm buying refills and stuff now, so there isn't as much stuff going into landfill. It's less for me to declutter. And again, as I mentioned in the last video, decluttering actually means that you will spend a lot less time cleaning. So even though I am spending more on more natural cleaners, the amount of time that I spend cleaning significantly reduced. Following on from that, and this is something that years ago I would not have considered at all, nowadays, and only in the last few weeks, I have hired a cleaning service. As you go through your decluttering journey, you will realize, what are the things that you actually want to spend your time doing, what are the things you want to spend your money on, and what are the things that you don't. And for me, I found that cleaning was kind of taking away from the things that I wanted to do more. Yes, I liked the result of cleaning, but I was spending so much time cleaning that I started to feel resentful towards it, and sometimes even resentful towards my husband and my daughter, because I felt like I was just tidying up after them. And I'm sure many of you can maybe relate to that, where you might start to feel like a maid in your own home. And my husband is very good at kind of like everyday stuff. Like he will empty the dishwasher, take out the bins, he washes the bedclothes every week, various things like that. He cooks dinners and stuff. So he's great at that sort of stuff, but not so much kind of the bigger cleaning tasks, I think, like dusting, which I hate, vacuuming, mopping, all of those more labor intensive maybe tasks. And I just found that I was just miserable doing them. There was always something else that I wanted to do instead. You know, hiring a cleaning service is something that I've gone back and forth on over the years. I always kind of considered it, but thought, you know what, no, why would I pay someone else when I can just do it myself? But again, I was just feeling bad every time I did it. So I did a little bit of research. I found a local family. It's a husband and wife team. They live just a few streets away from us. They have 3 kids and 3 dogs. And when I spoke to the wife, she was saying how, you know, the pandemic has basically I guess destroyed their business. Not destroyed, but it has had a huge impact, a huge negative impact on their business. They lost a massive amount of their clients. So it feels nice to, number one, get that task off my plate. Now I still do kind of everyday tidying and cleaning and stuff, and they come in once a week then do like floors and dusting, all of those bigger jobs that I talked about. Well, I get to spend more time doing the stuff that I want to do. I get to spend more quality time with my family. I don't have those horrible negative feelings anymore. I get to support a local small business. I don't know, I think it's a win-win for me. It's something that I would have felt very uncomfortable about a while ago, and even when I kind of started doing some research, still did not feel great about it. But now that we're a few weeks in and I can see the benefits, I'm really enjoying it. I know it's not in everyone's budget, certainly wouldn't have been in mine a few years ago, but I'm working, my husband is working, and like I said, we get to support a local small business. So this is something that I now spend more money on, something that I never used to spend money on, and now actually spend money on it. And I have to say, it's been great so far. And then, and I'm sure you've heard other people talk about this, but that is just kind of travel and experiences and making memories. When you declutter, you realize how much of your life isn't about physical stuff, but it's actually about memories and, you know, enjoying life. And I will say, I am not a travel person. I was never bitten by the travel bug. I'm very much a home bird, but I live in the US now. My family live in Ireland, so it's kind of like a necessity for me to travel. So I definitely spend a lot more money on that, but it's not just about the travel. I do try and make more of an effort to experience a little bit more and get out and adventure a little bit more. I'll be back by the time you watch this, but I'm about to go to Michigan to meet up with a friend I have never actually met in real life. We've just known each other online for a while, and that's something that years ago I never would have even considered. Whereas now, after decluttering and realizing what kind of types of life experiences are more important to me, I'm excited to go on this little bit of an adventure. Friends and family are something that are incredibly vital to me, so I'm making a lot more time for those types of things, and not just time for them, but, you know, quality time, engaging in those experiences and making those memories, you know, going on nice fun trips with my family. And they don't have to be like to very expensive places or anything, but just going somewhere and doing something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, so that when I look back, when my family looks back, we have all of those fond memories. But also conferences and things like that. Years ago, I never would have even considered spending money on something like that, or I would have been looking at the return on investment. But purely from a financial perspective, I would have thought, okay, if I'm investing, if I'm paying X amount of money, how am I going to make that much or even more money back? Whereas now I think of that investment in terms of the experience. You know, I might be putting money in, but I'm getting something so much more valuable out of it. I am, you know, meeting people, making new friends, forming relationships, having these new fun, exciting experiences and learning opportunities. And that for me is the return on investment that I am looking for. I mean, yeah, if there's a financial reimbursement coming my way, I won't say no to that. But if I have the money, these days I'm much more likely to invest it in things when there isn't kind of an immediate financial gain that I'm getting from it. I'm doing it for the fun and for the experience. When I focus more on the life enrichment side of things, I'm much more willing to spend money on experiences and trips and travel and conferences. I spend more on making memories. Is there anything on this list that surprised you? Again, keeping it respectful. Is there anything that you find that you spend more of if you are a minimalist or on a decluttering journey? Let me know. And until next time then, go raibh míle maith agaibh. Agus feici mé sibh go lua. Slán, off to make memories in Michigan.